Her wedding florist called her nervously, saying, "Your husband just ordered a bouquet for another woman." She paid double and told the florist to deliver it at her wedding with a different card. When the other woman opened the card in front of him, it read, "Congratulations on marrying a man who was cheating on me yesterday. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty wrap every woman in a protection so strong that no pain, no worry, and no sadness can break her. May your steps be guided by light, your hearts filled with peace, and your lives surrounded by blessings that reach far beyond your dreams. You are the gentle strength of every home, the quiet hope behind every victory, the love that keeps families alive. I pray that every tear you ever cried becomes a doorway to joy, every sacrifice you made returns to you as endless blessings, and every burden you carry is lifted from your shoulders. May your days be soft, your nights be peaceful, and your hearts always honored for the love you give so freely. My beautiful family, I see some of you watching but not staying till the end, not liking, not commenting. Have you forgotten your own brother, Mr. Peter? Or do you think I write these messages for nothing? Tell me the reason, because I write with my whole heart. For you, if your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." 3 days before her wedding, Lovey Lewis received a phone call that should have destroyed her. Instead, it armed her. June afternoon sunlight streamed through her grandmother's kitchen window where Lovey sat addressing final wedding invitations. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Lewis?" The voice was male, nervous. "This is Desmond from Blossom and Vine. I'm your wedding florist." "Yes, Desmond. Is everything all right?" Silence. Then, "I need to tell you something and I'm risking my business, but I can't let you walk into that church without knowing." Lovey's pen stopped. "Go on." "Your fiancé, Glenn Powell, came in yesterday. He ordered 24 roses for delivery Saturday to a woman named Diana Frost." The world tilted, but Lovey's voice remained steady. "What did the card say?" "It said, 'After this weekend we start our real life. No more hiding, I promise. Love always, G.'" Lovey closed her eyes, breathed once, twice. When she opened them, her vision was crystal clear. "Desmond, listen carefully. I'm paying you triple. You'll deliver that bouquet exactly as ordered, but change the card. Write this. 'Congratulations on being with a man who promised me forever yesterday. Enjoy the show. The bride.'" "Can you do that?" Desmond's breath caught. "Oh my God, yes, I can do that." "Good. Deliver it during the ceremony, when the minister asks if anyone objects. And Desmond, thank you for your honesty." She hung up, sat in silence. Her grandmother walked in, took one look at her face. "Baby, what happened?" Lovey looked up, and for the first time in 3 days of knowing, she smiled. "Grandma, remember how you said revenge is a dish best served cold? I'm about to serve it frozen." Saturday arrived with cruel perfection. Cloudless sky, gentle breeze. 300 guests filled St. Augustine's Church. Glenn Powell stood at the altar in his custom tuxedo, sandy hair perfectly styled, smile confident. His mother, Eleanor, sat front row wearing cream Chanel and a smile suggesting she'd just won something. Diana Frost sat third row wearing pale blue that clung to her curves. Beautiful, long dark hair, full lips, eyes promising secrets. Glenn's colleague from the investment firm, he'd told Lovey. Lovey had smiled and added Diana's name to the guest list without a word. Now, in the bride's room, Lovey looked at herself in the mirror. The Vera Wang gown fit perfectly. Off-shoulder lace, cathedral train. Her dark skin glowed against white fabric, natural hair in elegant twists adorned with white roses. "You look like a queen," her best friend Simone whispered. "I am a queen," Lovey replied. "That's why I'm about to rule my own kingdom." The bridal march began. Lovey's father, Augustus Lewis, took her arm. "You sure about this? You've been different these past days." "I've never been more sure, Daddy." They walked down the aisle. Every head turned. Glenn's face lit up. Lovey couldn't tell if it was love or triumph, and she realized she didn't care. Augustus placed Lovey's hand in Glenn's. Glenn squeezed it, leaned close. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Lovey smiled and said nothing. Reverend Michaels began the ceremony. Lovey watched Glenn recite vows, watched how his eyes never quite met hers, how his hand trembled sliding the ring on. "And now," Reverend Michaels said, "if anyone has reason these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. The back doors opened. Silence. The back doors opened. Desmond walked down the aisle carrying enormous deep red roses. Every head turned. Glenn's face went white. Eleanor sat up straighter. "Delivery for Miss Diana Frost," Desmond announced. Diana stood slowly. "For me." "Special delivery from Mr. Glenn Powell." The church erupted in whispers. Glenn's hand released Lovey's like she was fire. "Wait, that's not—" "Oh my God," Diana breathed, reading the card, face going from delight to horror. "Oh my God! What does it say?" someone called. "Read it," Lovey said, voice cutting through chaos like a blade. "Read it out loud. Everyone deserves the truth." Diana's voice broke. "Congratulations on being with a man who promised me forever yesterday. Enjoy the show." "The bride!" The church exploded. 300 people talking at once. Glenn lunged for Lovey. "This isn't what it looks like." Lovey pulled free with force that made Glenn stumble. She turned to the congregation, voice rising above chaos. "You came expecting a wedding. I'm sorry to disappoint. Instead, witness a lesson. This man has been sleeping with at least 6 women during our engagement. Diana is just stupid enough to believe his promises." Diana ran from the church. Eleanor shot up. "How dare you! You planned this!" "Eleanor," Lovey's mother, Teresa, stood, voice deadly calm. "Sit down. Your son is a liar and cheat. My daughter is a queen who just saved herself." "This is insane," Glenn shouted, face red, sweat beading. "Lovey, please. Talk? You want to talk now? After I found hotel receipts? After I found deleted messages? After I got tested for the STD you gave me, then convinced me I gave to you?" Gasps. Eleanor swayed. Glenn's father, Harrison, stood. "Son, is this true?" Glenn's silence was answer enough. Lovey removed her veil, let it fall, slid the engagement ring off and placed it on the altar. "I could have married him, could have ignored the signs, swallowed my pride. Instead, I chose myself. I chose truth. I chose dignity." She looked at Glenn, openly crying. "You thought I was weak. You thought I needed you. You were wrong about everything." Glenn grabbed her arm, falling to his knees. "Please, I love you. I'll change." Lovey looked down at him, felt absolutely nothing. "Glenn, the only thing I want from you now is distance." She walked out, cathedral train trailing, head held high. Behind her, chaos, Eleanor screaming at Teresa, Harrison telling his son to get off the floor. Simone caught up on the steps. "Where are you going?" "Grandma's house, then Georgia, then anywhere but here." She climbed into the limousine and pulled out her laptop, started making notes, planning, researching. Simone watched, confused. "What are you doing?" "Research. Grandma said revenge is a dish best served cold. She never said how long it takes to prepare." "You just destroyed him in front of 300 people. What more could you do?" Lovey looked up, dark eyes gleaming. "Simone, what happened in that church? That was just the appetizer." The video appeared within an hour. By sunset, 500,000 views. By midnight, 2 million. By Monday, trending everywhere with #BouquetRevenge. Glenn's phone rang 47 times that night. Lovey sat in her grandmother's guest room, still in her wedding dress, watching numbers climb. She didn't answer one. Instead, she pulled out a notebook. Names, dates, hotels, receipts, text screenshots, medical records, bank statements, everything she'd been collecting for 3 days since Desmond's call, everything she'd been collecting for 6 months since she first suspected. Her grandmother, Loretta Lewis, knocked and entered with tea and pie, 78, silver-haired, sharper than anyone half her age. "You all right, baby?" "I'm perfect, Grandma." Loretta sat beside her, looked at the notebook. "What's all this?" "Evidence." Lovey looked at her grandmother, the woman who'd raised 3 children alone, who'd built a catering business from nothing, who'd taught Lovey that strength was about choosing when and how you got back up. "I'm going to destroy Glenn Powell, not just embarrass him. I'm going to take everything he has, everything he is, and make sure he never forgets what it costs to underestimate me." Loretta smiled, patted Lovey's hand. "That's my girl, but be smart. Revenge is like cooking. Rush it, ruin it. Take your time, add right ingredients, control the heat. You create something unforgettable." "I know, Grandma. That's why I'm not rushing." After her grandmother left, Lovey returned to her notebook. Lists, categories, timeline, evidence that would end Glenn professionally, socially, legally. But she was patient, careful, methodical, because Glenn Powell had taught her something valuable. Powerful people don't react. They plan, they strategize, they wait for the perfect moment. And Lovey Lewis had just become the most powerful woman Glenn would ever know. Her phone buzzed. Another call from Glenn. She declined it, opened a new document. At the top, evidence for legal action, Glenn Powell. Then she smiled and got to work. Chapter 2. The Evidence Room. While Glenn Powell was begging the internet for sympathy, Lovey Lewis was in a lawyer's office with a folder that would end him. The wedding video went viral with shocking speed. By week's end, 20 million views. News outlets picked it up. Morning shows debated it. Think pieces appeared with titles like "The Bride Who Said No" and "When Public Humiliation Becomes Empowerment." Glenn tried controlling the narrative. 3 days after the wedding, he posted a tearful video. Soft lighting, grey t-shirt conveying humility, eyes red, voice breaking at perfect intervals. "I made a terrible mistake. I hurt someone I love deeply. Lovey, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. I was scared of commitment, scared of vulnerability. I betrayed your trust, and I'll regret it forever." He paused, wiped tears. "I'm asking for privacy as I work on myself and try to become the man she deserved." 3 million views in 24 hours. Comments were a battlefield. Half praised his accountability, half called him manipulative. Glenn's family hired Morrison and Blake PR, the firm that rehabilitated a politician's sex scandal. They released a statement. "The Powell family requests privacy. Glenn is seeking help and taking responsibility. We hope everyone can find peace." Eleanor gave an interview positioning herself as grieving mother. "Glenn made mistakes, yes, but Lovey's decision to humiliate him publicly, that speaks to her character as much as his actions speak to his." The article, "When Revenge Goes Too Far, The Other Side of the Bouquet Bride Story." 50,000 shares. Diana vanished from social media, deleting everything within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Lovey had gone silent. No posts, no interviews. Accounts active but frozen. People speculated wildly. Some said she was hiding, embarrassed. Others said she was planning. All wrong. Lovey was in Savannah, sitting across from attorney Isadora Chen, overlooking River Street. Isadora was 53, silver-streaked hair in severe bun, sharp eyes behind frameless glasses, reputation for destroying men in court. Her specialty was comprehensive legal warfare. "Show me what you have," Isadora said. Lovey opened her portfolio, laying out documents. First, financial abuse. Glenn insisted on a joint account 8 months in, said it was practice for marriage. He moved my paychecks in, said he'd handle finances because he understood money better. She slid across bank statements. He withdrew constantly, told me it was for our future, house fund, vacation fund, emergency savings. Isadora scanned them. How much? 73,000 over 2 years. Where did it go? Lovey slid across hotel receipts. Hotels, jewelry not for me, vacation rentals I never visited, an apartment lease I knew nothing about. Isadora's eyebrow raised. He rented an apartment. For Diana, 1 bedroom midtown, 1800 monthly. Paid 7 months. Second, systematic gaslighting. Lovey pulled out her phone, scrolled. Text screenshots going back 18 months. Every time I questioned him, he turned it around, told me I was paranoid, controlling, insecure. She read one. Baby, I'm worried about you. This jealousy isn't healthy. Maybe you should talk to someone about your trust issues. Isadora's jaw tightened. When was this sent? 3 days after I found a hotel receipt. He convinced me I was crazy. I made a therapy appointment because I thought something was wrong with me. Did you go? Yes. The therapist said I didn't have trust issues. She said my gut was trying to tell me something. That's when I started documenting. Smart. What else? Lovey pulled out medical records. He gave me HPV, high-risk strain, routine screening 4 months ago. When I told him, he acted shocked, said I must have gotten it elsewhere, asked if I'd cheated. Rage flashed across Isadora's face before she controlled it. Did you tell him you'd never been with anyone else? I'd only had one partner before Glenn, years ago, tested clean. Glenn knew. He still convinced me I brought it into our relationship. I spent 2 weeks thinking I'd carried dormant infection. Then I found out he'd given the same STD to at least 2 other women. How? Medical bill in his email for HPV treatment, dated 6 months before my diagnosis. He knew, gave it to me anyway. Blamed me. Isadora sat back. Lovey, this isn't relationship drama. This is systematic abuse, fraud, possibly criminal negligence. I know. I want him to pay for all of it. What's your goal? Lovey's voice didn't waver. I want to destroy him, legally, publicly, financially. I want him to lose everything, his reputation, his money, his future. I want him to become a cautionary tale. Isadora studied her. Most people come in crying. You came with a battle plan. I'm not most people. No, you're not. Isadora leaned forward. Civil suit for fraud, emotional distress, defamation, sexual negligence. We can pursue high 6 figures, possibly 7. He doesn't have that money. What does he have? Trust fund, 300,000. Matures when he's 33 next month. His salary was 90,000 yearly, but he's been fired. He was fired. Company statement yesterday said the situation created untenable work environment. Isadora smiled grimly. So, consequences already. Good. Family money? Parents are wealthy. Father owns 3 dealerships. Mother has old money. They'll pay legal fees, try to settle. Will they liquidate assets? Possibly. Even better, nothing hurts wealthy people more than selling things. Lovey pulled out one more folder. Glenn's been creating fake accounts to harass me. I haven't proven it, but I have cybersecurity working on tracing IPs. Isadora made notes. If we prove that, it's harassment and cyber stalking, criminal charges on top of civil. How long will this take? Depends if they settle or fight. Trial could take a year, maybe more. I have time. Good. Because this won't be easy. They'll come after you, discredit you, paint you vindictive. They'll dig into everything, make it ugly. Let them. I have nothing to hide. Isadora pulled out a contract. Retainer is 20,000. I charge 400 hourly. This could get expensive. I have savings Glenn never touched. Separate account he didn't know about. 60,000. It's yours. You've been planning this. I've been preparing. There's a difference. Isadora signed, slid it across. Then let's burn his world down. Lovey signed without hesitation. Over the next week, Isadora's team built the case, organized evidence, interviewed witnesses, prepared documentation. They found 3 other women Glenn had been involved with, all willing to testify about manipulation, lies, patterns. They calculated damages, 73,000 stolen, 15,000 medical expenses, 50,000 emotional distress. But Isadora aimed higher. Punitive damages. We're not just getting your money back. We're punishing him and deterring others. I'm asking 1.8 million. He'll never pay that. His trust fund plus liquidated family assets? They'll pay to make this go away. Wealthy people hate public trials. The lawsuit was filed Wednesday morning. Papers served to Glenn at his parents' home. Eleanor answered. The process server handed her the envelope. She opened it, read, and screamed loud enough neighbors 3 houses down heard. Glenn appeared in sweatpants and stained shirt, hair unwashed, face unshaven, aged 5 years in 2 weeks. What is it? Eleanor shoved papers at him. That bitch is suing you for $2 million. Glenn's face went white, reading. This can't be legal. She can, and she is, the server said. You've been served. Glenn sat on front steps reading with shaking hands. Every page another knife, every documented incident another humiliation, all laid out in brutal legal language. At the bottom was a note from Isadora Chen. Your client should consider settlement. We have additional evidence not yet disclosed. Trial will be significantly more damaging than quiet settlement. Glenn called his father. Dad, I need a lawyer, a really good lawyer. I know, I already called Nathan Cross, best defense attorney in the state. Expensive. How expensive? 500 hourly, 25,000 retainer. I don't have that. I know, I'll pay it. But Glenn, this is the last time. After this, you're on your own. Nathan Cross met with Glenn and his parents in his downtown office. I've reviewed the lawsuit. It's comprehensive. She has documentation for everything. Financial records alone are damning. But you can fight it, Eleanor asked. Nathan gave her a look, suggesting he'd heard this from 1,000 mothers. Mrs. Powell, your son stole $73,000, gave his fiancée an STD, and committed systematic fraud. No jury will see him as victim. So what do we do? Harrison asked. We settle, fast, before discovery forces us to disclose more. How much? Glenn asked, voice hollow. She's asking 1.8. I think I can get her down to 1.2, maybe 1.1 if we move quickly. I don't have that. Your trust fund matures next month. 300,000. Your parents cover the rest. Harrison stood. Absolutely not. I'm not liquidating assets for my son's mistakes. Then we go to trial, and every detail becomes public record. Media covers it. Your dealerships get associated. Your country club friends read about it. Is that what you want? Harrison sat back down. After the lawyer left, silence. Finally, Eleanor spoke. This is her fault. She's destroying our family over a few mistakes. Mother, Glenn said, voice barely above whisper. She's destroying me because I destroyed her first, and I'm starting to think I deserve it. Eleanor slapped him. Don't you dare side with her. I cheated with 6 women. I stole her money. I gave her an STD and convinced her it was her fault. What part makes me the victim? He stormed out. Harrison looked at Eleanor. He's right. We raised a man who thinks he's entitled to everything and responsible for nothing. That's on us. Mostly on you. You've coddled him his whole life. I loved him. You enabled him. And now we're all paying the price. Meanwhile, Lovey was at a community center meeting with young women in Rising Voices for survivors of domestic violence. She sat in a circle with 12 women, listening to their stories. When her turn came, she told the truth. 3 weeks ago, I was supposed to marry a man who spent 3 years lying, manipulating, making me question my sanity. What made you stop? A young woman named Keisha asked. I got lucky. Someone told me the truth at the last moment. But more than that, I'd spent 6 months documenting everything because some part of me knew I couldn't trust him. But you still showed up to the wedding, Jasmine said. I did, because I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. Humiliated, betrayed, exposed. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it satisfying? Absolutely. They laughed. What now? Keisha asked. Now I fight. Legally, publicly, completely. I'm suing him for everything. Money, trust, peace of mind. And I'm going to win. Aren't you scared? Terrified. But I'm more scared of what happens if I don't fight. The room was quiet. Then Jasmine spoke. You're really brave. No, Lovey said. I'm just done being afraid. After the session, program director Octavia pulled Lovey aside. That was powerful. Have you thought about speaking more publicly? We have programs across Georgia that could use someone like you. Think about it. Your story has power. Use it. Lovey drove back to her grandmother's house as sun set over Savannah. Her phone buzzed. Text from Isadora. Glenn's lawyer reached out. They want to settle. Meeting next week. Lovey smiled and typed, "Good. Let's take everything." Chapter 3. The Shotgun Speech. Glenn Powell had never had a gun pointed at him before, but then again, he'd never destroyed a woman like Lovey Lewis before. The settlement meeting was scheduled for Thursday. Nathan Cross had advised Glenn to prepare for the worst. "They're asking $1.8 million. I think I can get them down to 1.3, maybe 1.2 if we're lucky. That's still more than my trust fund. I'm aware. Your parents will make up the difference. Are they willing?" Glenn looked at his father sitting stone-faced. "Dad?" Harrison Powell had aged visibly in 3 weeks. Hair seemed grayer, face more lined. "I'll pay it, on one condition. After this settles, you move out, you get a job, you build your own life. I'm done enabling you." Eleanor gasped. "Harrison, you can't." "I can, and I will. Glenn is 32 years old. Time he learned to stand on his own." Glenn nodded, too numb to argue. But that was Tuesday. Now it was Wednesday night, and Glenn was drunk. He'd started drinking at noon, sitting in his childhood bedroom surrounded by high school trophies and college photos. He scrolled through Lovey's Instagram, still active but frozen, last post from 3 days before the wedding. Her smiling in the bridal shop, caption, 3 more days. Comments were a war zone. Thousands debating whether she was hero or villain, whether Glenn deserved sympathy or prison. Glenn drank through the afternoon, reading every comment, every think piece. By evening, he'd finished a bottle of whiskey and made a decision. He was going to see Lovey. Apologize in person, make her understand he was sorry, he loved her. This whole nightmare could end if she just gave him another chance. At midnight, he got in his car, stupid decision leading to 1,000 more stupid decisions, and drove 3 hours from Atlanta to Savannah, to the address he'd paid a private investigator $500 to find. He arrived at Loretta Lewis's house at 3 a.m., stumbling drunk, crying, convinced that if he could just talk to Lovey face to face, she'd see how much he was suffering and forgive him. He pounded on the front door. "Lovey! Lovey, please! I need to talk to you!" Inside, Lovey woke to her name being screamed. 3 a.m., got up, went to the window, saw Glenn's car in the driveway, Glenn himself on the porch, pounding. Her grandmother appeared in the hallway wearing pink robe and carrying her late husband's shotgun. "Is that him?" Loretta asked calmly. "That's him. Go back to your room, baby. I'll handle this." There was steel in Loretta's voice. Lovey hadn't heard since childhood. She went to her room but left the door cracked. Loretta opened the front door. Glenn stood there swaying, eyes red and wild, clothes disheveled. "Where is she? I need to talk to her. I love her." Loretta raised the shotgun, pointing directly at Glenn's chest. Hands steady, voice steadier. "Young man, you have exactly 5 seconds to get off my property before I redecorate my porch with your intestines." Glenn's eyes widened. "You can't." 1. "I just want to talk." 2. "This is crazy. I love her." 3. Glenn backed up. "You're going to shoot me for wanting to apologize?" 4. Glenn turned and ran to his car. Loretta followed to the end of the porch, shotgun still raised. "And if you ever come back here, if you ever contact my granddaughter again, if you even drive through this neighborhood, I will make you disappear. Do we understand each other?" Glenn fumbled with keys, finally got the door open. "You're insane!" "No, baby. We're just done being disrespected by entitled little boys who think the world owes them forgiveness. Now get!" Glenn peeled out. Loretta watched until his taillights disappeared, then called 911. "Chatham County Police. I need to report a trespasser at 427 Magnolia Street. White male, 30s, driving black Mercedes, license plate." She rattled off the number. "He was intoxicated and threatening. We'd like to press charges." Police caught Glenn 15 minutes later. pulled over for swerving, failed breathalyzer spectacularly, .18, more than twice legal limit, arrested for DUI and trespassing. His mugshot, taken at 4 a.m. with hair wild, eyes glazed, expensive vest rumpled, was in the police database by sunrise. By 10 a.m. on TMZ, by noon, trending on Twitter. Bouquet revenge groom arrested for drunk driving and trespassing at ex-fiancée's home. The photo went viral faster than the wedding video. Comments were brutal. He looks like he hasn't showered in weeks. This man is obsessed. Imagine being this pathetic over someone clearly done with you. Eleanor Powell's phone rang constantly. She stopped answering. Harrison posted Glenn's bail, $5,000, and picked him up from jail without speaking. The silent drive back to Atlanta was the longest 2 hours 45 minutes of Glenn's life. When they got home, Harrison finally spoke. "Pack your things. You have until Sunday to find somewhere else to live." "Dad, I mean it. I'm done. Your mother can coddle you if she wants, but I won't have you living under my roof." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's your problem. You're an adult. Figure it out." Meanwhile, Lovey was at Chatham County Courthouse filing for restraining order. Form was simple: name, address, reason. Under reason, she wrote, "Subject has history of harassment, showed up at my home intoxicated at 3 a.m., violated my privacy and safety." The judge granted it within an hour. Glenn Powell was now legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from Lovey Lewis. The restraining order was served that afternoon, along with notification he was being charged with trespassing and criminal stalking. Eleanor opened the door, saw the process server again, and threw the papers at him. "Leave us alone!" Glenn read the restraining order in his bedroom, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Court date for trespassing was 2 weeks from now. DUI court date 3 weeks after that. Settlement meeting for the lawsuit was tomorrow. Everything was falling apart faster than he could process. His phone buzzed. Text from his sister, Natalie. "Just saw the mugshot. Jesus Christ, Glenn, what were you thinking?" He texted back, "I don't know, I just wanted to talk to her." "You wanted to talk to her at 3 a.m. after driving drunk for 3 hours. That's not love. That's obsession. I love her, Nat." "No, you love the idea of her. You love what she represented, someone who believed in you despite evidence you didn't deserve it. But you never actually loved her. If you had, you wouldn't have cheated. You wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have shown up drunk at her grandmother's house like some stalker." "Whose side are you on?" "The side of reality. Mom has convinced you you're the victim. You're not. You're the villain. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can actually change." She stopped responding. Glenn lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in his life, he saw himself clearly. A 32-year-old man who'd never been told no, never faced consequences, never had to be accountable. His mother had protected him from every mistake. His father had paid for every problem. And now he was facing a woman who didn't care about his tears, his apologies, or his excuses. A woman who wanted justice, not reconciliation. The settlement meeting next day was held in conference room at Isadora Chen's law firm. Lovey arrived in navy suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked powerful, composed, untouchable. Glenn arrived in wrinkled khakis and polo, eyes hollow, face unshaven. He looked destroyed. They sat across from each other at a long table. Isadora and Nathan at opposite ends. No one spoke. Nathan cleared his throat. "My client would like to offer settlement of $1 million, paid over 5 years, in exchange for dismissal of all claims and mutual non-disclosure agreement." Isadora didn't even look at notes. "No. That's substantial. My client wants $1.8 million, paid in full within 90 days, no NDA, and public apology posted on all of Mr. Powell's social media platforms." "That's unreasonable." "What's unreasonable is your client stealing $73,000, giving her an STD, committing systematic emotional abuse, then showing up drunk at her grandmother's house at 3 in the morning. $1.8 million is me being generous." Glenn spoke for the first time, voice hoarse. Lovey, please, can we just talk? Just the two of us? Lovey looked at him for the first time, eyes cold, distant. No. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything. But please, we can work this out without... Without what, Glenn? Without consequences? Without you having to actually pay for what you did? I'll pay. I'll give you whatever you want. Just please don't do this publicly. You destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure you pay for it. Nathan intervened. Ms. Lewis, if we can't reach agreement, this will go to trial. Trials are expensive, time-consuming, unpredictable. Isadora smiled. Oh, we'll win. I have 5 women ready to testify about your client's pattern of manipulation. I have medical records, financial records, text messages, emails. I have a paper trail that would make the IRS jealous. And I have a client who photographs extremely well on the stand, poised, articulate, sympathetic. Your client just got arrested for drunk driving and trespassing. Who do you think a jury will believe? Silence. Harrison, who'd been sitting quietly next to his son, finally spoke. How much can you settle for? Really? Isadora looked at Lovey, who nodded. 1.5 million, paid within 60 days, no NDA, public apology, and your client agrees to mandatory therapy for minimum 1 year. Take it or leave it. This is the only offer you're getting. Harrison looked at his son. Take it. Dad, I can't take it. This is destroying our entire family. Your mother is on antidepressants. I'm selling one of my dealerships to pay your legal fees. Your sister won't talk to me. Take the goddamn settlement. Glenn looked at Lovey one more time. Is this really what you want? To ruin me? Lovey's voice was quiet, but firm. I don't want to ruin you, Glenn. I want you to understand actions have consequences. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything because someone you trusted betrayed you. I want you to be better, but mostly I want you out of my life forever. Nathan pulled out the settlement agreement. Harrison signed. Glenn signed with shaking hands. $1.5 million. 60 days. Glenn Powell was officially destroyed. As they left the conference room, Lovey passed Glenn in the hallway. He grabbed her arm, gently, but still a grab. Lovey, please. She pulled away like he was fire. You violated the restraining order. If you touch me again, I'll have you arrested. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I don't care. And she walked away, leaving him standing in the hallway, crying. Outside, Loretta was waiting in her car. Lovey got in, and her grandmother handed her sweet tea. How'd it go? 1.5 million, paid in 60 days. Loretta let out a low whistle. Baby girl, you just became a very wealthy woman. I don't want the money, Grandma. I want justice. You got both. Now what? Lovey smiled. Now I build something he can never touch. Chapter 4. The Foundation and the Fury. While Glenn Powell was begging for scraps of forgiveness, Lovey Lewis was building an empire from the ashes of her broken heart. 8 months had passed since the settlement. Glenn had paid every penny. Trust fund emptied, father's dealership sold, mother's jewelry liquidated. The money sat in Lovey's account 3 weeks before she made her decision. She was sitting in her grandmother's kitchen when Octavia from Rising Voices called. Lovey, I have a proposal. What if we took your story national, built a real organization to help women leave abusive situations? I don't know anything about running a non-profit. But you know what women need when they're trying to rebuild. You lived it. That's more valuable than any MBA. Lovey thought about the 12 women in that first circle, thought about their faces when she told them fighting back was possible, thought about Keisha, who'd left her abusive boyfriend 3 days after that session and sent Lovey a message. You gave me permission to choose myself. What would we need? Money, a mission, a team. Lucky for you, you've got the first one covered. 2 months later, the Wildflower Foundation officially launched. Lovey took 1.2 million of the settlement money and put it into the foundation. The remaining 300,000 she kept as security. The foundation's mission was simple: provide legal support, housing assistance and therapy for women leaving emotionally or financially abusive relationships. No red tape, no judgment, no questions about why they stayed. They rented a converted Victorian house, painted yellow with white trim, surrounded by wildflowers Lovey planted herself. Inside, they created consultation rooms, legal clinic, children's play area, and library full of resources. Lovey hired 3 full-time staff. Octavia as program director, lawyer Rochelle Santos to run legal clinic, and therapist Imani Wade to provide counseling services. The grand opening was covered by every local news station. Lovey gave an interview standing in front of the yellow house, wearing white dress, natural hair, in an afro. "Why wildflowers?" the reporter asked. "Because wildflowers grow in harshest conditions. They don't need perfect soil or constant care. They just need a little room to breathe, and they bloom. That's what survivors of abuse are, wildflowers. Give them space, resources, and watch them transform." The interview went viral. Not as viral as the wedding video, nothing could top that, but it spread through domestic violence survivor networks, women's organizations, and social media platforms dedicated to empowerment. Donations started coming. Small amounts at first, $20 here, $50 there. Then larger donations from women's foundations, grants from organizations focused on DV prevention, and eventually a $100,000 donation from an anonymous donor who turned out to be Diana Frost. Lovey called her when she found out. "Diana, I can't accept this." "Why not?" Diana's voice was weak but firm. She was still fighting cervical cancer, still in treatment. "Because you're dealing with your own medical bills. This money is from the settlement Glenn gave me. When I threatened to sue him for giving me HPV, I was going to keep it, but honestly, what am I going to do with it? I'm not getting better, Lovey. The cancer spread. I've got maybe 6 months. Lovey's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. But do me a favor. Use this money to help women who are where I was. Stupid enough to believe a man who told them they were special." "You weren't stupid." "Yeah, I was. But you weren't. You got out. You fought back. You built something beautiful. Let me be part of that." The money funded a second location in Atlanta, then a third in Macon. Within 6 months, the Wildflower Foundation was operating in 5 Georgia cities, helping an average of 200 women monthly. Lovey became the face of the organization. She did speaking tours across the state, appeared on podcasts, wrote articles for women's magazines about recognizing emotional abuse and reclaiming power. She was interviewed on a morning show in Atlanta. The host, Vanessa Parks, asked, "Do you ever worry you're profiting from your trauma?" Lovey didn't flinch. "Every day. That's why 100% of my speaking fees go back into the foundation. That's why I live in my grandmother's house and drive a 10-year-old Honda. That's why our financial records are public. I'm not profiting. I'm building." "Building what?" "A world where women don't have to humiliate their abusers in public to be believed. A world where leaving is possible even without money or family or resources. A world where men like my ex-fiancé face real consequences instead of just saying sorry and moving on." The interview clip was shared 50,000 times. Meanwhile, Glenn Powell was living in a studio apartment in rough part of Atlanta, working at Planet Fitness as personal trainer, making $15 hourly. His parents had cut him off completely. His father had filed for divorce from Eleanor after she'd drained their savings trying to protect Glenn. His sister Natalie had moved across the country and changed her number. He had no friends. Everyone from his old life had distanced themselves once the settlement became public. No girlfriend. Women Googled his name on first dates and ghosted him immediately. No prospects. Every job interview ended the same way once they saw the background check. He lived alone, worked alone, came home alone. His studio apartment had a mattress on the floor, folding table and TV he'd bought at Goodwill. He watched Lovey's interviews from that thrift store TV, sitting on the floor, eating ramen. Every time she smiled on camera, every time she talked about building something meaningful, every time she helped another woman escape a situation like the one he'd created, it was a knife in his chest. Not because he wanted her back. He'd finally realized he never really wanted her at all. He'd wanted the appearance of having someone like her, the status, the validation. But watching her now, powerful, articulate, genuinely happy. He understood what he'd destroyed. Not just a relationship, a person. And that person had rebuilt herself into something he could never touch, never diminish, never hurt again. His therapist, court-mandated $50 a session that left him eating rice and beans for a week, asked during one session, "Do you resent her success?" "No," Glenn said honestly. "I envy it. She took the worst thing that ever happened to her and built something beautiful. I am the worst thing that ever happened to her, and I can't even hold down a decent job. Do you think you deserve to suffer? I think I deserve consequences. Whether that's suffering or just reality, I don't know." "What would you say to her if you could?" Glenn thought for a long time. "I'd say thank you." "For what?" "For showing me what accountability actually looks like." But he never said it to her. The restraining order was still in effect. He couldn't contact her, couldn't go near her, couldn't even comment on her social media posts. So he just watched from afar, a ghost in her success story, a footnote in her empire. On the one-year anniversary of the wedding that never was, Lovey held a gala fundraiser for the foundation. 200 people attended, survivors, donors, supporters, press. The yellow Victorian house was decorated with thousands of actual wildflowers. Lovey gave a speech in a stunning gold dress, natural hair in goddess locks, presence commanding the room. 1 year ago today, I was supposed to get married. Instead, I got free. Free from a relationship slowly killing who I was. Free from a man who saw me as something to possess rather than someone to cherish. Free from the lie that love is supposed to hurt. The room was silent. Someone asked me recently if I regret how I ended things, if I regret the public spectacle, the lawsuit, the media attention. The answer is no, not even a little bit. Because if I'd ended things quietly, if I'd just called off the wedding and moved on, I'd still be carrying his shame. I'd still be wondering if I was too sensitive, too paranoid, too demanding. She paused, looked directly at the camera documenting the event. But I didn't do that. I chose the hard path, the public path, the path that made me a villain to some and a hero to others. And you know what I gained? This. All of you. Every woman who walked through our doors, every child who watched their mother choose safety over staying, every person who realized they deserved better. That's worth every nasty comment, every think piece, every person who says I went too far. Standing ovation, 200 people on their feet. Glenn watched the clip the next day, watched her smile, watched her radiate confidence and purpose. Then he closed his laptop, went to his Planet Fitness shift, and spent 8 hours wiping down machines and trying not to think about the life he'd destroyed. That night, he came home to find an eviction notice on his door. He'd missed rent, again, because his car had needed repairs, and he'd had to choose between keeping his job or keeping his apartment. He sat on the floor of his studio, holding the eviction notice, and cried. Not for her, not for them, for himself, for the man he could have been if he'd ever learned to be better. The next day, he called his court-mandated therapist and asked about free group therapy for men who'd committed abuse. "I don't have money for regular sessions anymore," he said, "but I need help, real help. Not because a court told me to, because I don't want to be this person anymore." The therapist was quiet. "There's a group Tuesdays, 8 p.m. church basement on Ponce, donation-based. Pay what you can." "Thank you." Glenn, actually wanting to change is the first step, but it's only the first step. I know. He went to his first meeting that Tuesday, sat in a circle with 12 other men, all court-ordered or self-referred, all struggling with the weight of what they'd done to women they claimed to love. The facilitator, a man named Marcus, who'd been in recovery from abusive behavior for 15 years, asked each person to share one thing they wanted to be accountable for. When Glenn's turn came, he said, "I destroyed a woman who loved me. I stole her money, gave her a disease, and convinced her she was crazy for not trusting me. Then when she fought back, I showed up drunk at her grandmother's house and tried to manipulate her into forgiving me. I want to be accountable for all of it." The room was quiet. Then Marcus nodded. That's a start. Now the real work begins. Glenn spent the next 6 months in that church basement every Tuesday night, learning to recognize his patterns, his entitlement, his manipulation tactics, learning that apologizing wasn't the same as changing, learning that he'd confused control with love his entire life. It was brutal, humbling work, but it was the first honest thing he'd done in years. Meanwhile, Lovey's foundation continued growing. 9 locations across Georgia, plans to expand to South Carolina and Alabama, a book deal with a major publisher for memoir about her experience and lessons learned about recognizing and escaping emotional abuse. She was interviewed for National Morning Show. The host asked, "Do you ever think about your ex-fiancé?" "No," Lovey said honestly. "I think about the women I'm helping, the lives we're changing, the systems we're disrupting. He's not part of that story anymore." "But he made you who you are." Lovey smiled. "No, he showed me who I already was. There's a difference." The interview went viral. Over 3 million views in 48 hours. Glenn saw it, heard her say she never thought about him, realized it was true. He wasn't angry. He was relieved, because she was free, really, truly free. And maybe, someday, if he kept doing the work, kept being honest, kept facing what he'd done, maybe he could be free too, not free from consequences. He'd carry those forever, but free from the need to be forgiven by the woman he'd destroyed. That was growth. It was too late for them, but it wasn't too late for him to be better. He just hoped she never had to know about it. Chapter 5. The Mother's Audacity. Eleanor Powell had raised her son to believe the world owed him everything. Now she was about to learn that Lovey Lewis didn't owe him a damn thing. 15 months after the settlement, Lovey's foundation had expanded to 12 locations across 3 states. Her book, Wildflowers Rise: Rebuilding After Betrayal, was being shopped to publishers with early interest from 3 major houses. She'd been profiled in Essence magazine, featured on NPR, invited to speak at a domestic violence prevention conference in Washington, D.C. She was thriving in ways that made Glenn's downfall look even more pathetic by comparison. Eleanor Powell had been following every development through Google alerts on Lovey's name. Each notification was a fresh wound. Each article about the foundation's success was reminder that the woman who destroyed her son was being celebrated as hero. She couldn't stand it. She'd spent the past year and a half slowly unraveling. Her divorce from Harrison had been bitter and expensive. He'd kept the remaining dealership, the house, most assets. She'd gotten a condo in Buckhead and enough alimony to maintain appearances, but barely. Country club friends had distanced themselves. Invitations to charity galas dried up. Her standing in Junior League quietly evaporated. She was no longer Eleanor Powell, society matron. She was Eleanor Powell, mother of that man from the viral wedding video. She blamed Lovey for all of it. On a Tuesday afternoon in late September, Eleanor drove to Savannah. She'd rehearsed her speech in the car, firm but reasonable, mother to mother, woman to woman. Surely Lovey would understand. The Wildflower Foundation's main office was in that cheerful yellow Victorian that made Eleanor's teeth ache. Wildflowers bloomed in front garden, purple coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, wild daisies. Hand-painted sign reading "All are welcome here" hung on porch. Eleanor hated it on sight. She walked in without appointment. Reception area was warm and inviting, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, children's books in corner play area. Young black woman at front desk looked up with professional smile. "Good afternoon, welcome to Wildflower Foundation. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Eleanor said crisply, "but I need to see Lovey Lewis immediately. It's urgent." "I'm sorry, but Ms. Lewis doesn't take walk-ins. If you'd like to schedule—" "I don't think you understand. I'm Eleanor Powell, Glenn Powell's mother. She'll want to see me." The receptionist's smile cooled by several degrees. "I'll check if she's available. Please have a seat." Eleanor didn't sit. She paced the small lobby, Prada heels clicking on hardwood, designer handbag clutched like weapon. 5 minutes later, Lovey appeared in the doorway to back offices. She wore black slacks and cream blouse, locks pulled back in low bun, minimal makeup, simple gold jewelry. She looked professional, powerful, completely unintimidated. "Mrs. Powell," she said coolly, "this is a surprise. We need to talk, privately." Lovey studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Follow me." She led Eleanor to small conference room, white walls, wooden table, windows overlooking garden. Lovey sat down and gestured for Eleanor to do the same. "What can I do for you?" Eleanor took a breath, trying to maintain composure. "You can stop this campaign against my son." Lovey's expression didn't change. "I'm not campaigning against anyone. I'm running a non-profit that helps abuse survivors." "Don't play coy. Every interview you give, every article written about you, every time you tell your story, it's keeping what happened to Glenn in the public eye. He can't move on. He can't get a decent job. He can't date. His entire life has been destroyed because you won't let people forget. His life was destroyed because of his own actions. He made a mistake. One mistake." Lovey leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Powell, your son didn't make one mistake. He made hundreds. 6 affairs over 3 years, $73,000 stolen, an STD he knowingly gave me, then blamed me for. Systematic gaslighting and emotional manipulation. Showing up drunk at my grandmother's house at 3 in the morning. Those aren't mistakes. That's a pattern. He was young. He was confused. He's sorry. I don't care." The bluntness stopped Eleanor cold. You don't care? Not even a little bit. Mrs. Powell, do you know how many women come through our doors every week? 30? Sometimes 40? Women who've been beaten, manipulated, controlled, isolated from families. You know what they all have in common?" Eleanor said nothing. "They all had mothers-in-law who made excuses for their sons, who said, 'He's under stress,' or 'marriage is hard,' or 'you must have done something to upset him.' Women like you, Mrs. Powell, who enable abuse by refusing to hold their sons accountable." Eleanor's face flushed red. "How dare you? How dare I? How dare you? You raised a man who thought he could lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate without consequences because mommy would always make it better. You've spent his entire life protecting him from reality, and now you're here asking me to do the same? To stop telling my truth so your son can what? Get a better job? Find a girlfriend who doesn't know what he did? Move on like nothing happened? He's suffered enough." "Has he?" Lovey's voice was sharp now. "Has he really? Because suffering would mean understanding the pain he caused. Suffering would mean genuine remorse, not just regret he got caught. Your son isn't suffering because he hurt me. He's suffering because he faced consequences. There's a difference. You're vindictive. You're cruel. You could have ended this quietly, privately, but instead you made it public, you made it viral, you ruined his entire life for revenge." "No, Mrs. Powell. I made it public because women are tired of being told to suffer in silence. I made it public because the only way to stop men like your son is to make them understand abuse has consequences. I made it public because I refuse to carry his shame." Eleanor stood up, shaking with rage. "You're destroying a young man's future over a few affairs and some money. Don't you have any compassion?" Lovey stood too, voice deadly calm. "Did your son have compassion when he was sleeping with 6 different women while wearing my engagement ring? Did he have compassion when he stole money I'd saved for our future? Did he have compassion when he gave me an STD and convinced me it was my fault? That's different. It's not different. It's just that you've spent 33 years convincing yourself your son is special, that rules don't apply to him, that his pain matters more than pain he causes others. Well, I have news for you. Glenn isn't special. He's just another entitled man who thought he could destroy a woman without consequences, and I'm living proof he was wrong." Eleanor's hand shot out and slapped Lovey across the face. The sound cracked through the small room like a gunshot. Lovey's head snapped to the side. For a moment, neither woman moved. Then Lovey slowly turned back to face Eleanor, red mark blooming on her dark cheek. "Get out," Lovey said quietly. "You provoked me. Get out." Octavia appeared in the doorway, having heard commotion. "Lovey, are you okay?" "Call the police. Mrs. Powell is trespassing and she just assaulted me." Eleanor's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious. You came to my place of business uninvited, made threats and physically attacked me. Those are crimes. And unlike your son, I don't make excuses for people who hurt me. This is insane. It was barely a slap. Octavia, call the police, now. Eleanor grabbed her handbag and rushed toward the door. This isn't over. Actually, it is over. You're banned from this property. If you come back, if you contact me again, if you so much as send me an email, I will prosecute you to the fullest extent. Are we clear? Eleanor stood in doorway, breathing hard, perfectly applied makeup smudged with tears. She didn't remember crying. He loved you, she said, voice breaking. He really did love you. Lovey touched her cheek where the slap had landed. No, Mrs. Powell. He loved the idea of me. There's a difference. Now leave before police arrive. Eleanor fled. Lovey sat back down, hand still on her cheek. Octavia rushed in with ice wrapped in kitchen towel. Are you okay? Should we really call police? Yes. I want this documented. I want paper trail showing she came here, made threats and assaulted me. Police arrived 15 minutes later. Lovey gave statement. Officer photographed mark on her face, took down Eleanor's information, filed report. Do you want to press charges, ma'am? Lovey thought for a moment. Not yet, but I want this documented. If she contacts me again, I will. After police left, Lovey sat in her office alone. Her cheek still stung, her hands shaking slightly. Adrenaline, anger, something she couldn't quite name. She pulled out her laptop and opened new document, started typing. To the mothers who raise monsters, an open letter. She wrote for 2 hours straight, fingers flying across keyboard. She wrote about Eleanor, about enabling, excuses, refusal to see sons as capable of harm. She wrote about every mother-in-law who'd ever told a woman to give her abuser another chance. When she finished, the piece was 3,000 words of raw, honest fury. She posted it on the Foundation's blog that night. By morning, 10,000 shares. By afternoon, 50,000. By week's end, it was featured in Huffington Post, The Root, and Jezebel. The letter every abuse survivor wishes they could send to their ex's mother, one headline read. The key paragraph went viral on Twitter. To every mother who's ever called her son's victim vindictive, cruel, or unforgiving, your son didn't make a mistake. Mistakes are accidental. What your son did was make a choice, multiple choices, hundreds of small decisions to lie, manipulate, harm. And when you make excuses for those choices, when you prioritize his comfort over his victim's safety, when you demand forgiveness he hasn't earned, you are complicit. You're part of the system that allows abusive men to move from relationship to relationship, leaving broken women in their wake because you taught him mommy would always clean up his messes. Well, some of us refuse to be your son's mess anymore. Reshared over 100,000 times. Eleanor saw it, of course. Country club friends sent screenshots with concerned messages. Her sister called asking if she was okay. She was humiliated. Again. She called Glenn, who hadn't answered her calls in 3 months. Did you see what she wrote? Eleanor demanded when he finally picked up. I saw it. She's attacking me now. This has gone too far. You need to... I need to what, Mother? Sue her. Show up at her house. Beg her to stop telling the truth. The truth? She's making me sound like some enabling monster. Long silence. Then Glenn said something that broke Eleanor's heart. Maybe you are. Glenn. No, listen, I've been in therapy for almost a year now. Real therapy. You know what I'm learning? That every time I messed up as a kid, you fixed it. Every time I hurt someone, you made excuses. Every time I needed to face consequences, you protected me from them. You taught me I was special, that rules didn't apply to me, that women existed to serve me. I never said that. You didn't have to say it. You showed me. Every time you blame my girlfriends for not understanding me, instead of holding me accountable for treating them badly. Every time you told me I deserved better when I was the problem. Every time you paid for something I broke or someone I hurt. Eleanor was crying. I was protecting you. I'm your mother. You were enabling me. And now we're both paying the price. Lovey's right, Mom, about all of it. How can you say that? She destroyed your life. I destroyed my own life. She just refused to go down with me." He hung up. Eleanor sat in her Buckhead condo, surrounded by furniture she'd bought to prove she was still somebody, and realized she'd lost everything: her marriage, her social standing, her son, all because she'd spent 33 years protecting him from the truth that he wasn't special. He was just her son, and she'd loved him so much she'd turned him into someone unlovable. Meanwhile, Lovey's foundation received record donations that week, over $200,000, much from women who'd sent notes saying, "This is for telling the truth my ex's mother never wanted to hear." Lovey used the money to open 2 new locations and hire 3 more therapists. She never thought about Eleanor Powell again. But Eleanor thought about her every single day. Chapter 6. The Sabotage. Broken men don't heal. They plot, they scheme, and when the world stops watching, they strike. Glenn Powell's descent into genuine rock bottom took exactly 18 months from the day of the failed wedding. He'd been evicted from his studio, spent 2 weeks sleeping in his car before a friend from therapy group let him crash on a couch. He'd lost the Planet Fitness job after showing up late one too many times. His car kept breaking down, and he couldn't afford both repairs and rent. He was working now at a warehouse loading trucks for $12 an hour. Night shift. Brutal physical labor that left him exhausted and aching. He'd lost 30 pounds, hands calloused, face perpetually stubbled because razor blades cost money he didn't have. But something had shifted in those 18 months. Therapy was working, slowly. He was beginning to understand the difference between remorse and self-pity, beginning to see the patterns that had destroyed not just his relationship with Lovey, but every relationship. He was doing the work, real work. Then his mother called. "Glenn, I found something you need to see." "Mom, I told you I can't. Just look at what I'm sending you, please." The email contained screenshots. Lovey's Foundation's quarterly financial report, publicly posted as promised. Eleanor had highlighted certain sections in yellow. "Look at her salary," Eleanor wrote. "She's paying herself $180,000 yearly from a foundation built on donations from abuse survivors. She's profiting from your pain." Glenn stared at the number, $180,000. His first reaction was fury. She'd taken his money, built a foundation, and was now paying herself 6 figures, while he was loading trucks for minimum wage. His second reaction, the one that came from 18 months of therapy, was to actually read the full report. Foundation's total operating budget was $2.3 million. Lovey's salary represented less than 8%. The rest went to staff salaries, program costs, rent for 12 locations, legal fees for free legal clinic, therapy services, housing assistance for clients. $180,000 for running a multi-million-dollar organization across 3 states was actually below market rate. But Glenn's third reaction, the one that came from the damaged part therapy hadn't fully healed, was darker. What if people didn't know that? What if they just saw the number and assumed the worst? He closed the email, deleted it, tried forgetting about it. But the thought lingered. 2 weeks later, he was scrolling through Twitter during lunch break. Someone had posted about the foundation, praising Lovey's work. Comments were overwhelmingly positive. Glenn created a burner account, named it at Truth About NPOs, posted a single tweet. "Interesting that at Wildflower Found pays its founder $180,000 while claiming to help abuse survivors. Where's that money coming from? Who's really being helped here?" He hit send before he could stop himself. The tweet got 3 likes, 2 retweets. Nothing major, but it felt good. Felt like power. Felt like control. He created more accounts, posted more tweets, shared financial information with misleading context, suggested Lovey was profiting from trauma, implied the foundation was a scam. Most tweets went nowhere, but a few caught fire, especially when he learned to phrase them as just asking questions instead of making direct accusations. "Just wondering why at Wildflower Found's founder makes $180,000 when some DV shelters pay directors $60,000. Seems like a lot of money for helping people." Not saying at Wildflower Found is fake, but has anyone verified where donations go? Would love to see independent audits. Funny how some people turn trauma into six-figure salary. Must be nice. The tweets started getting traction. 50 likes, 100. People who didn't know better started questioning the foundation's legitimacy. Glenn knew it was wrong, knew it was the exact behavior his therapist had warned about, trying to tear down Lovey's success because he couldn't build his own. But he couldn't stop. The foundation's donation rate dropped 15% in a month. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. Board members started asking questions. Potential donors were Googling the foundation and finding Glenn's tweets mixed with legitimate coverage. Lovey noticed. Of course she noticed. She brought it up at staff meeting. We're seeing increased negative attention on social media, accusations about financial mismanagement, questions about where donations go. I think it's coordinated. Rochelle pulled up examples on her laptop. These accounts are all new, all focused solely on attacking us. It's either coordinated trolling or one person with multiple accounts. Can we trace them? Octavia asked. I can try, said Imani, who moonlighted as the foundation's social media manager. But it'll take time and possibly money for cybersecurity experts. Lovey's jaw tightened. Do it. I want to know who's behind this. It took 2 weeks. Imani hired a digital forensics consultant who traced IP addresses of 7 different accounts back to the same location, a Starbucks in East Atlanta, where Glenn went between shifts because they had free Wi-Fi and he couldn't afford internet. The consultant sent Lovey a report. All accounts appear to be operated by single individual, based on posting times and location data, likely someone working night shift in area, accessing internet from public Wi-Fi. Recommend legal action. Lovey stared at the report. She didn't need consultant to tell her who it was. She knew. Glenn. Still trying to hurt her. Still trying to destroy what she'd built. Still unable to let go. She could report him to police, could sue him again, could make his life even more miserable. Instead, she did something that would haunt Glenn far more than any lawsuit. She went to see him. Lovey found out where Glenn was living through Natalie, who still felt guilty about her brother and maintained occasional contact. She drove to the East Atlanta apartment complex, run-down building with broken security gates and overflowing trash bins. She knocked on apartment 2B at 3 p.m., knowing Glenn would be asleep after night shift. He answered in boxers and stained undershirt, hair a mess, eyes bleary. When he saw her, he went white. Lovey. She held up a folder. Can I come in? He stepped aside, too shocked to refuse. The apartment was barely furnished. Couch, TV on crate, folding table. It smelled like old pizza and desperation. Glenn grabbed sweatpants, pulled them on. How did you... Your sister. She's worried about you. She shouldn't be. Probably not, but she is anyway. Lovey set the folder on folding table. I know about the Twitter accounts, Glenn. All of them. I have proof they're yours. Glenn's face flushed. He sat down hard on couch. I can explain. Don't. I'm not here for explanations. Then why are you here? Lovey sat across from him, looked him in the eyes. I'm here to give you a choice. Option 1, I release the evidence publicly. Show you've been running coordinated harassment campaign against a domestic violence non-profit. Your face is already associated with our viral story. This will make it worse. You'll never work anywhere decent again. Glenn's hands were shaking. What's option 2? You disappear. Completely. You delete every account. You stop posting about me, about the foundation, about any of this. You move out of Georgia. You start over somewhere else where people don't know your face. And you never, ever contact me or anyone associated with me again. That's it? You're just giving me an out? I'm giving you a chance to do what you should have done 18 months ago. Walk away. Actually work on yourself instead of trying to tear me down. Live your life without me in it. Why would you do that? Lovey was quiet. Because I'm tired, Glenn. I'm tired of you being part of my story. I built something beautiful and you're still trying to poison it. If I prosecute you, if I make this public, you become part of my narrative again. I don't want that. I want you gone. And if I refuse, she pushed the folder toward him, then I bury you. These screenshots, IP addresses, timeline of when you created each account and what you posted. It all goes to press, goes to police, goes to everyone who's ever Googled your name. You think your life is bad now? It can get worse. Glenn opened the folder, saw evidence laid out systematically. Every tweet, every account, every piece of data linking back to him. It was comprehensive. Damning. You've been planning this. I'm good at planning now. You taught me that. Never underestimate the woman you betrayed. Glenn closed folder, looked at her. I'm in therapy, real therapy. I'm actually trying to change. Then prove it by leaving. A man who's actually changing doesn't spend his time trying to sabotage his ex's success. I know. I see you everywhere. On TV, in magazines, being celebrated for the worst thing that ever happened to you. And I'm the worst thing that ever happened to you. How am I supposed to live with that? Lovey's voice softened slightly. That's not my problem anymore, Glenn. How you live with what you did. That's between you and your therapist. But you don't get to make it my problem. Not anymore. She stood up, walked to door, turned back. You have 48 hours to decide. Delete the accounts and leave Georgia, or I release everything. Your choice. Then she left, closing the door quietly. Glenn sat in the silent apartment for a long time, looked at folder, thought about his options. There was nothing here worth fighting for. He spent the next 48 hours deleting every account, every tweet, every trace. Then he called Natalie. I need help. I need to leave Georgia. Can you loan me enough money for first month's rent somewhere far away? Why? Because I can't get better here. Because everywhere I look, I'm reminded of what I destroyed. Because I need to actually change instead of just talking about it. Natalie was quiet. Where do you want to go? Somewhere no one knows my face. Somewhere I can just be nobody for a while. I can loan you $3,000, that's it. After that, you're on your own. Thank you. Glenn? Actually change this time, not for her. For you. I'm going to try. 1 week later, Glenn Powell left Georgia. He moved to Portland, Oregon, a city where no one recognized him, where his face wasn't associated with viral wedding disasters, where he could work construction and try to build some kind of life. He sent Lovey one final email before he left. I deleted everything. I'm leaving Georgia. You won't see me again. Thank you for giving me a way out that didn't destroy me completely. I don't deserve your mercy, but I'm grateful for it. I hope you never think about me again. You deserve that peace. Glenn. Lovey read the email once, then deleted it. She never responded. She told Foundation Board the harassment has stopped. The person responsible is no longer a threat. Donations picked back up. Negative tweets were buried under positive coverage. Foundation expanded to Alabama and South Carolina. Lovey moved forward, never looking back. And somewhere in Portland, Glenn Powell started over, working as carpenter's assistant, attending therapy twice weekly, trying to become someone worthy of redemption he'd never asked for. Chapter 7. The Disappearance and the Discovery. Glenn Powell vanished on a Tuesday. But Lovey Lewis didn't celebrate because she knew broken men don't disappear, they metastasize. 9 months after Glenn left Georgia, Lovey's foundation had grown beyond imagination. 15 locations across 4 states. Staff of 47. Annual budget of $4.2 million. They'd helped over 3,000 women in the past year. Lovey had become national figure in domestic violence prevention space. She'd been invited to speak at United Nations about economic abuse. She'd testified before Congressional Committee about need for federal funding for DV programs. She'd been featured in Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People issue. Interview ran with photo of her standing in front of original yellow Victorian, wearing navy suit and slight smile. Headline read, How One Woman's Wedding Disaster Became a Movement. Glenn saw the article. Of course he did. He was in Portland, living in a studio apartment in Southeast, working for a construction company building custom furniture. The work was honest, physical, meditative. He'd gotten good at it. Dovetail joints, hand planing, finishing. His hands that once shuffled investment papers now shaped wood into beautiful things. He'd kept up therapy. 2 years now, weekly sessions with therapist named Ruth, who specialized in men recovering from abusive behavior. He attended men's accountability group every Tuesday night in church basement. He'd stopped drinking completely. 8 months sober. He was doing the work, real work, not for Lovey, not for family, but for himself. But he still Googled her name sometimes, still watched interviews, still read about Foundation, not because he wanted her back, because he needed to see proof she'd survived him. The Time article sat on his coffee table for a week before he finally threw it away. Then, 3 days later, he received a letter. Actual physical mail, forwarded from old Atlanta, addressed to his sister, who'd forwarded it to him. Return address was Orlando, Florida. Name was Diana Frost. Glenn's hands shook as he opened it. Dear Glenn, I don't know if you'll receive this or if you'll care, but I wanted you to know something before I die. The cervical cancer spread. It's in my lymph nodes, liver, bones. They've given me maybe 2 months, possibly less. I'm in hospice now. I want you to know I forgive you, not because you deserve it, you don't, but because carrying anger takes energy I don't have. You gave me HPV that turned into cancer that's killing me, and that's just fact. No anger will change it. But I also made choices. I chose to sleep with an engaged man. I chose to believe your lies. I chose to ignore red flags. So I own my part. What I want you to know is that Lovey reached out to me about a year ago. She found me somehow. She paid for my experimental treatment, covered costs my insurance wouldn't, paid for my hospice care. She did this after everything, after I participated in destroying her wedding, after I was part of your betrayals. She didn't have to, but she said, no woman deserves to die because a man gave her a disease and left her to deal with it alone. She's the kindest person I've ever met, Glenn. The woman you destroyed is the only one who showed me grace. I thought you should know that. I thought you should know what real goodness looks like, so you can see the difference between who she is and who you were. I'll be dead soon. You get to keep living. Do something worthy with that life. Don't waste it like I wasted mine believing men like you. Diana. Glenn read the letter 3 times. Then he sat on the floor of his studio apartment and cried until he couldn't breathe. Lovey had saved Diana. After everything. After the betrayal, after the wedding disaster, after all of it, Lovey had reached out and saved the woman who'd helped destroy her happiness. He wanted to call Lovey, to thank her, to tell her what she'd done meant something, but he knew he couldn't. Reaching out would violate the spirit of their last conversation. She'd told him to disappear, to leave her alone. So instead, he wrote a letter he never sent. Lovey, I heard what you did for Diana. I heard you saved her life for as long as you could. I want you to know this is the moment I finally understood the difference between us. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you, me, and you became more compassionate, not less. I took the shame of what I did and tried to destroy you all over again. You are what goodness actually looks like. Thank you for showing Diana grace. Thank you for being better than I ever deserved. Thank you for existing in the world and making it better. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be even 1% as good as you are. Glenn. He folded the letter, put it in a box with other things from his past he couldn't throw away but refused to send. Then he went to his Tuesday night accountability group. When it was his turn to share, he told them about Diana's letter, about Lovey's grace. The group was silent. Finally, facilitator Marcus spoke. Glenn, do you understand what this means? That I destroyed someone extraordinary? No, that you'll never be free of what you did. Because every time you see her name, every time someone talks about her work, you'll be reminded you had the chance to be part of something beautiful and you chose destruction instead. That's not punishment, that's just reality. I know. Good. Because healing doesn't mean you get to forget. It means you learn to live with what you did without making excuses for it. Glenn nodded. I'm trying. Keep trying. That's all anyone can do. 3 weeks later, Diana died. Glenn saw the obituary online. Her family had posted it in Orlando Sentinel. Diana Marie Frost, 29, died peacefully in hospice surrounded by family. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to Wildflower Foundation. Glenn sent $500 to Foundation anonymously. Half his paycheck that week. He ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches to make up the difference. It didn't make him feel better, didn't absolve anything, but it felt like the least he could do. Meanwhile, Lovey attended Diana's funeral. She flew to Orlando, sat in back of church, didn't introduce herself to Diana's family, just wanted to pay respects to a woman whose life had gotten tangled up in Glenn's destruction. After the service, Diana's mother approached her. "Are you Lovey Lewis?" Lovey nodded. The woman hugged her. "Thank you for giving my daughter grace, for paying for her care, for showing her that not all people are cruel. I'm sorry she went through that. So am I. But she died knowing someone good existed in the world. That meant something." Lovey cried on the flight back to Savannah. Not for Diana exactly, but for all of it. For the waste. For the way one man's selfish choices had rippled out and touched so many lives. She got home late, exhausted, emotionally drained. Her grandmother had sweet tea waiting. "How was it, baby?" "Sad. Necessary, I don't know." "You did good paying for her treatment. I don't know if I did it for her or for me. To prove I wasn't like him, maybe." "Does it matter? You helped someone who needed it. That's what matters." Lovey was quiet for a long time. "Grandma, do you think people can really change?" "Some can. Most don't. Why?" "I don't know. I just wonder sometimes if Glenn is actually different, or if he's just better at hiding who he is." "Does it matter? He's gone. You're here. You're building something beautiful. Let him be someone else's worry now." Lovey nodded. "You're right." But that night, lying in bed, she thought about Glenn for the first time in months. Wondered where he was, if he was okay, if he'd actually changed. Then she stopped herself. It didn't matter. He wasn't her responsibility anymore. He was just a man who'd hurt her once and no longer had power to hurt her again. She turned over and went to sleep. In Portland, Glenn was doing the same, trying to sleep, trying not to think about her, trying to accept he'd always be the villain in her story, and that was exactly what he deserved. Both of them learning to live in the aftermath of destruction. Both of them changed by what had happened, but only one of them became better for it. Chapter 8. The Woman Who Bloomed. Falling in love after betrayal isn't weakness. It's the ultimate proof that you healed, that you won, that you're unbreakable. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Lovey Lewis met Elijah Hartwell at a domestic violence prevention conference in Charleston, South Carolina. She was keynote speaker. He was trauma therapist presenting workshop on attachment theory and healing from emotional abuse. They ended up in same breakout session about innovative approaches to DV prevention, sat next to each other by coincidence, and spent 90 minutes passing notes like high schoolers. His first note, scribbled on conference program margins, "Did the speaker really just suggest yoga will fix economic abuse?" Her response, "I think she also mentioned journaling. So yoga plus journaling equals freedom from financial manipulation, apparently." His reply, "I'm starting a new treatment protocol, crystal healing for gaslighting victims." She had to cover her mouth to keep from laughing. After the session, they went for coffee, talked for 3 hours. She told him about the foundation. He told her about his practice specializing in men recovering from abusive behavior. Same kind of work Glenn's therapist was doing, though neither mentioned Glenn by name. "I work with perpetrators," Elijah said. "You work with survivors. We're different sides of same fight." "Do you think people can really change?" Lovey asked. "Abusive people, I mean." "Some can. Most don't. The ones who do, they're the ones who accept they were abusive not because of circumstances or mental health or stress, but because they chose to be. They chose control over connection. Most people aren't willing to admit that. My ex wasn't willing. Most aren't. That's why I spend most of my time trying to prevent the next generation from becoming abusers instead of rehabilitating the current one. They exchanged numbers. He texted her that night. Thanks for the coffee. If you're ever back in Charleston, let me know. She texted back, I speak in Charleston twice a year. Next one's in April. April it is. They started slowly. Coffee dates when Lovey was in Charleston for speaking engagements. Phone calls late at night when she couldn't sleep and he was finishing paperwork. FaceTime sessions where they'd work side by side, her writing her book, him reviewing case files. He was different from Glenn in every way. Where Glenn had been charming and smooth, Elijah was quiet and thoughtful. Where Glenn had made grand gestures, Elijah asked quiet questions. Where Glenn had promised the moon, Elijah promised honesty. I want you to know I Googled you, he said during one of their phone calls, 6 months into whatever they were building. I know what happened at your wedding. I know about the lawsuit. Lovey's heart sank. And nothing. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and help others. I respect that. You don't think I went too far? I think you went exactly as far as necessary. Too many people stay quiet because they're afraid of being called vindictive or bitter. You chose truth over comfort. That takes courage. It was the first time someone had said that without qualification, but maybe you could have handled it differently, tacked on the end. She cried during that phone call, happy tears. After a year of long distance, whatever it was, Elijah asked her to dinner at a nice restaurant in Savannah when he came to visit. I need to tell you something, he said over dessert. Lovey's stomach dropped. Here it comes. The other shoe. The reveal that he's not who he seemed. I'm falling in love with you, he said. I have been for months, and I know that's scary given what you've been through, so I need you to know. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not asking you to move at my pace. I'm just telling you the truth because I believe you deserve honesty always. Lovey stared at him. You're falling in love with me? Yes. Why? He laughed softly. Why? Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. Because you turn trauma into purpose. Because you make me want to be better. Because when you laugh, really laugh, your whole face lights up and I feel like I won something just by making that happen. Lovey reached across table and took his hand. I'm not there yet. I want to be clear about that. I like you. I care about you. But I'm not ready to say I love you. I know. And I need you to be okay with that. With me taking my time. With me being careful. I am okay with that. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. 6 months later, Lovey said it back. They were at her grandmother's house, helping Loretta plant her summer garden. Elijah was on his knees in the dirt, carefully transplanting tomato seedlings, while Loretta directed him like a general commanding troops. Lovey was watching from the porch, drinking sweet tea, and she just knew. Elijah, he looked up, dirt on his face, smiled genuine. I love you. He stood up so fast he knocked over a tomato plant. Loretta yelled at him to be careful. Lovey laughed. He crossed the garden and kissed her, and Loretta said, about damn time. After 2 years together, Elijah proposed. They were at the foundation's 3rd anniversary celebration. 200 people in attendance. Lovey had just finished her speech about how far they'd come, now operating in 6 states, helping over 5,000 women annually. Elijah took the microphone. I wasn't planning to do this publicly, he said, but I figured Lovey already had one viral moment in her life. Might as well give her another. The crowd laughed. Lovey, 3 years ago you built something beautiful from destruction. You took pain and turned it into purpose. You took betrayal and turned it into a movement. And somehow, miraculously, you let me be part of that journey. He got down on one knee. I'm not asking you to complete me. You're already whole. I'm asking if I can walk beside you while you keep changing the world. Will you marry me? Lovey said yes before he finished the question. The crowd erupted. Someone filmed it. It went viral. Not wedding disaster viral, but sweet viral. News outlets covered it with headlines like "Bouquet Revenge Bride Gets Her Happy Ending." Glenn saw the announcement. Of course he did. He was in Portland, 3 years into his new life. He'd been promoted to lead carpenter at the furniture company. He had his own apartment, small but clean. He had friends from his men's group. But seeing Lovey's engagement announcement hit him like physical blow. Not because he wanted her back. He'd long since accepted that ship had sailed, burned and sunk, but because it was proof of something he'd always feared. She'd moved on completely. She'd found real love. She was happy in a way she'd never been with him, and he was still just Glenn Powell, the guy from the viral wedding video, trying to be better and mostly succeeding, but never quite escaping his past. His therapist Ruth asked him during their session that week, "How do you feel about the engagement?" "Sad. Not for me, just sad that I'll never know what it feels like to be loved by someone the way Elijah clearly loves her. Because I destroyed my capacity to receive that kind of love." "Do you think that's true? That you destroyed your capacity?" "I think I have to earn it back, if that's even possible. And I think that takes a lifetime of being better, not just 3 years. That's growth, Glenn. Real growth. Doesn't make it hurt less. No, but pain is how you know you're actually changing. If it didn't hurt, you wouldn't be human." Glenn went to his men's group that Tuesday. When it was his turn to share, he told them about the engagement. "The woman I destroyed is getting married to someone who deserves her. And I'm happy for her. Genuinely happy. But I'm also grieving the man I could have been if I'd learned how to love instead of control." Marcus nodded. "That grief is important. It means you're finally seeing clearly. Most men never get there." "What do I do with it?" "You let it teach you. You use it as fuel to be better, and you accept that some doors close permanently because of our choices. That's not cruelty. That's consequences." Glenn wrote Lovey one final letter that night, didn't send it. "Congratulations on your engagement. Elijah is a lucky man. Not because he gets you, nobody gets you, you're not property. But because he gets to witness the incredible person you've become. He gets to support the work you do. He gets to love you the way you deserve to be loved from the beginning. I hope your wedding is everything you dreamed of. I hope your marriage is everything ours never could have been. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Thank you for surviving me. Thank you for thriving. Be happy. You earned it. Glenn." He put it in the box with all the other unsent letters. Then he went to bed. Meanwhile, Lovey was at her grandmother's house, trying on wedding dresses with Simone and Loretta. "This one," Loretta said, when Lovey came out in a simple ivory dress with lace sleeves and flowing skirt. "This is the one." "You sure, Grandma?" "Baby, I've been sure about you since the day you walked out of that church. This dress is just confirmation." Simone wiped tears. "You look so happy." "I am happy. Really, genuinely happy." "Does it feel different than before?" Lovey thought about it. "Before, with Glenn, I was always performing, trying to be the woman he wanted, trying to be perfect so he wouldn't stray. With Elijah, I just, he loves me because of who I am, not who I'm trying to be." "That's what real love looks like," Loretta said. The wedding was scheduled for June, exactly 3 years after the wedding that never happened. Lovey and Elijah sent out invitations to 200 guests, simple, elegant cards with wildflowers pressed into the paper. One invitation was addressed to Natalie Powell, Glenn's sister. She called Lovey when she received it. "Are you sure about this?" Natalie asked. "I'm Glenn's sister. Won't it be weird?" "You're also my friend," Lovey said. "You apologized when he wouldn't. You supported me when your family attacked me. You're not responsible for your brother's choices. I want you there." "Thank you. That means more than you know." "How is he?" "Glenn." Natalie was quiet. "He's different. Better, I think. He's in Oregon, working construction, going to therapy. He sent me a letter last month saying he's been sober 2 years. He asked about you, actually. Asked if you were happy." "What did you tell him?" "I told him you're thriving, that you're engaged to a good man, that you've helped thousands of women. He said he was glad. Lovey was silent for a moment. Good. I'm glad he's doing better. Do you mean that? I do. I don't want him suffering forever. I just want him far away from me. He is. I promise. The wedding took place on a perfect June afternoon. Not at St. Augustine's. Lovey refused to go back there. Instead, they married at the yellow Victorian house where the foundation started, in the garden full of wildflowers. 200 people attended. Lovey wore the ivory dress with lace sleeves. Elijah wore a navy suit and cried when he saw her walking down the aisle on her father's arm. The ceremony was short and honest. No grand promises, just truth. I promise to love you on hard days, Lovey said in her vows. I promise to choose you every morning. I promise to let you love me even when I'm scared. I promise to be your partner, not your project. I promise to see you completely, Elijah said in his. I promise to celebrate your strength and hold space for your vulnerability. I promise to never make you smaller so I can feel bigger. I promise to build our life together, not demand you fit into mine. When they kissed, the crowd stood and cheered. At the reception, Lovey's father gave a toast. 3 years ago, my daughter was supposed to marry a man who didn't deserve her. Today, she married a man who knows exactly how lucky he is. That's not a fairy tale. That's my daughter choosing herself first, then choosing love second. That's the right order. Loretta gave the final toast. To my granddaughter, who taught me that revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It's about building a life so beautiful they become irrelevant. Glenn Powell is a footnote, Elijah Hartwell is the headline, and Lovey Lewis, she's the whole damn book. The crowd roared. Meanwhile, across the country, Glenn Powell was working a Saturday shift at the furniture company when his phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged him in a post, a photo from Lovey's wedding, caption reading, "The bouquet revenge bride got her happily ever after." Glenn looked at the photo. Lovey in her wedding dress, glowing with genuine joy, Elijah looking at her like she hung the moon, the garden full of wildflowers. It was everything her first wedding was supposed to be, everything he'd destroyed. He turned off his phone, went back to sanding the table, and let himself cry while he worked. Not for her, for himself, for the man he'd never be, for the life he'd never have, but also, and this was new, with genuine gratitude that she'd found it. That was growth. That was as close to redemption as he'd ever get. And maybe, after 3 years of work, that was enough. Chapter 9, The Unexpected Reunion. 3 years after the wedding that broke the internet, Lovey Lewis and Glenn Powell ended up in the same room, this time by fate, not design. Lovey was keynote speaker at a national education conference in Seattle. Her foundation had expanded beyond domestic violence support to include educational programs about healthy relationships, consent, and emotional intelligence. She was presenting on Teaching the Next Generation, Breaking Cycles of Abuse Through Education. Glenn was there presenting a workshop titled Accountability in Action, a former abuser's journey to prevention work. He'd been working with Ruth, his therapist, to develop curriculum for teaching teenage boys about consent, respect, and recognizing early warning signs of abusive behavior in themselves. He'd submitted the workshop proposal under his legal name, Glenn A. Powell, not thinking anyone would connect him to the viral wedding disaster from 5 years ago. He was wrong. The conference was massive. 3,000 attendees, multiple tracks, hundreds of presentations. Glenn arrived early for his workshop, scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. in a small breakout room. He was nervous. This was his first time presenting publicly about his past. At 1 p.m., he ducked into the main ballroom to hear the keynote. The room was packed. He found a seat in the back row. Then Lovey walked on stage. Glenn's blood turned to ice. She was stunning, natural hair in long locks, wearing a burgundy pantsuit, presence that commanded attention. She looked powerful, confident, absolutely radiant. He should have left, should have walked out immediately. But he couldn't move. Lovey began speaking about her journey, the wedding, the lawsuit, the foundation. She talked about turning personal trauma into systemic change. She talked about the women she'd helped, the lives saved, the cycles broken. Then she said something that made Glenn's chest tighten. The man who abused me taught me something valuable. Hurt people, but healed people can heal people. I don't know where he is now. I don't need to, but I hope, genuinely hope, that he's doing the work, that he's learning, that he's helping prevent the next generation from becoming what he was. Because the only way we break cycles is if everyone participates. Survivors and perpetrators, victims and abusers. We all have to do better. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. Glenn sat frozen in his seat, tears streaming down his face. After the keynote, there was a networking lunch. Glenn went to the bathroom, splashed water on his face, tried to calm down. He had his workshop in an hour. He could do this. He could present, then leave without running into her. But when he walked into the breakout room at 1:55, Lovey was sitting in the front row. Their eyes met. The world stopped. Glenn's first instinct was to run, but she was blocking the only exit. The room was filling with attendees, about 40 people taking seats, pulling out notepads. He couldn't leave without causing a scene. Lovey's expression was unreadable. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just watched him. Glenn walked to the front of the room, hands shaking, set down his notes. When everyone was seated, he cleared his throat. Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Powell, and this workshop is called Accountability in Action, a former abuser's journey to prevention work. Before I begin, I need to tell you something. The woman sitting in the front row, he gestured to Lovey, is my former fiancée. I didn't know she was at this conference. She didn't know I was presenting, but she has every right to be here, and I have an obligation to tell my truth even with her witnessing it. The room went silent. A few people pulled out phones, clearly Googling his name. Someone gasped. Oh my God, you're the bouquet guy. Glenn nodded. I am. 5 years ago, I was exposed at my wedding for having 6 affairs, stealing $73,000 and systematically abusing the woman I claimed to love. That woman is Lovey Lewis, founder of the Wildflower Foundation and the keynote speaker you just heard. More gasps. People were staring at Lovey, then back at Glenn. Lovey remained perfectly still. Glenn continued, I spent 3 years after that wedding in denial, then anger, then desperate attempts to avoid consequences. I harassed Lovey. I created fake accounts to discredit her work. I showed up drunk at her grandmother's house. I was arrested, sued, and ordered into therapy, and through all of it, I blamed everyone but myself. He paused, looked directly at Lovey. Then I started doing actual work, real therapy, men's accountability groups. I moved across the country to escape my reputation and started over. I've been sober 3 years. I've been in therapy for 4. And for the past year, I've been working with my therapist to develop curriculum to teach teenage boys what I wish someone had taught me, that abusive behavior is a choice, not a mistake. That control isn't love. That accountability isn't punishment. It's growth. He took a breath. This workshop isn't about redemption. I'm not redeemed. This is about breaking cycles, about teaching the next generation so they don't become me. Because the only way we stop abuse is if former abusers take responsibility and actively prevent it in others. Glenn looked at Lovey. If you want to leave, I understand. But I'm going to continue. Lovey stayed in her seat. Glenn spent the next hour presenting his curriculum. He was honest, vulnerable, unflinching. He talked about his patterns of manipulation, his entitlement, his refusal to see women as fully human. He talked about how therapy had forced him to confront the reality that he'd been abusive not because of stress or mental illness, but because he'd chosen to be. He showed worksheets he'd developed for teenage boys to recognize warning signs in themselves, exercises about consent, respect, emotional regulation, role-playing scenarios about handling rejection without violence or coercion. Lovey listened to every word. Her face was unreadable. When the workshop ended, attendees approached Glenn with questions. Lovey stood up and walked toward the exit. Glenn excused himself and followed her into the hallway. Lovey, Wait. She turned. They stood 3 feet apart in the conference center hallway, 5 years of history between them. I didn't know you'd be here, Glenn said. I know. I would have withdrawn my presentation if I'd known. Why? Because the last thing you need is me in your space. Lovey studied him for a long moment. Your workshop was good. The curriculum is solid. You should keep doing that work. Thank you. Silence. Are you okay? Lovey asked. Glenn almost laughed. Am I okay? Lovey, I destroyed you. I have no right to ask if you're okay, let alone expect you to ask me. I'm asking anyway. I'm better. I'm sober. I'm in therapy. I have a job I like. I'm doing work that matters, but I'll never be okay with what I did to you. And I shouldn't be. Lovey nodded slowly. Good. That's the right answer. They stood in silence for another moment. I saw you got married, Glenn said. Congratulations. He seems like a good man. He is. I'm glad. You deserve that. Glenn, can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you doing this? The prevention work, the curriculum. Is it guilt? Penance? What? Glenn thought carefully. At first it was guilt, then it was penance. Now, it's responsibility. I can't undo what I did to you. I can't give you back the years I stole or the trust I destroyed. But I can try to prevent other men from becoming what I was. If I can reach even one teenage boy and teach him that women aren't objects to control, that love isn't possession, then maybe I'm doing something worthwhile, not for redemption, just because it's the right thing to do. Lovey studied his face. I believe you. Thank you. But Glenn, I need you to understand something. You doing better doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't mean I forgive you. It doesn't mean we'll ever be friends or even friendly. Your growth is yours. It has nothing to do with me. I know, and I'm not asking for anything from you. Not forgiveness, not acknowledgement, nothing. You being here, listening to my workshop, that's more than I deserve. Lovey took a step back. I'm going to go now. Keep doing the work. Teach those boys better. Break the cycles, but stay away from me. This conference was coincidence. Let's keep it that way. I will, I promise. Lovey turned to leave, then stopped. Glenn, yeah? I don't hate you anymore. I don't think about you enough to hate you. You're just someone who hurt me once, and I survived it. That's all you are to me now. She walked away. Glenn stood in the hallway watching her go. He expected to feel devastated. Instead, he felt relief. She'd survived him. She'd more than survived. She'd thrived. And hearing her say she didn't think about him enough to hate him was somehow better than forgiveness. It meant he was irrelevant. It meant she was free. Later that evening, Glenn had dinner with Ruth, his therapist, who'd come to the conference to support him. I saw her, he said. Lovey. Yeah, she came to my workshop. We talked after. How did that go? She told me I was just someone who hurt her once, that she doesn't think about me enough to hate me. Ruth smiled. That must have hurt to hear. It did, but it also felt right. She's moved on completely. She's married, running an incredible organization, changing lives. And I'm just me, working on being better. That's growth, Glenn. Real growth. You can be happy for her success without needing to be part of it. Yeah. Are you going to keep doing the prevention work? Absolutely. It's the only thing that makes any of this feel worthwhile. Ruth nodded. Then you're exactly where you need to be. The next day, Glenn flew back to Portland. He went to his men's group that Tuesday and told them about seeing Lovey. She said I was just someone who hurt her once. Not her abuser, not the man who destroyed her, just someone who hurt her, past tense. Marcus, the facilitator, asked, how does that feel? Like closure, not redemption, not forgiveness, just closure. She's moved on. I can move on too. Not from accountability, I'll always carry that, but from the obsession with being forgiven. The group nodded. Glenn spent the next months continuing his work. He refined the curriculum, started presenting it at high schools across Oregon. He trained teachers on how to talk to teenage boys about consent and healthy relationships. He wrote articles for education journals about breaking cycles of abuse through early intervention. His life wasn't glamorous. He lived in a small apartment, drove an old truck, ate simply, but he was doing work that mattered. And sometimes, late at night, he'd pull out the box of unsent letters to Lovey. He'd read them, remember who he'd been, and feel grateful for who he was becoming. Not for her, for himself, and maybe for the boys he was teaching to be better than he ever was. Chapter 10. The Woman Who Rose. 5 years after the bouquet that changed everything, Lovey Lewis stood before 5,000 women and told them the truth. Revenge isn't making him suffer, it's refusing to let his betrayal define your worth. The National Women's Conference was the largest Lovey had ever spoken at. 5,000 attendees from across the country, media coverage, live stream with another 10,000 watching online. This was the culmination of everything she'd built. Lovey stood backstage, taking deep breaths. Her husband Elijah squeezed her hand. "You've got this." "I know, I just want to get it right." "You always do." She kissed him, then walked out to thunderous applause. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady and strong. 5 years ago, I was supposed to get married. Instead, I became infamous. The bouquet revenge bride. The woman who destroyed her wedding to expose her cheating fiancé. For months, I was either a hero or a villain depending on who you asked. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. But here's what I learned. Revenge isn't about destruction. Real revenge is reconstruction. It's taking the pieces of your broken heart and building something so beautiful that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. Applause. I didn't destroy Glenn Powell. He destroyed himself through his own choices. What I did was refuse to be destroyed alongside him. I chose visibility over silence. I chose accountability over protection. I chose myself. She paused. Let that sink in. Today, the Wildflower Foundation operates in 18 states. We've helped over 15,000 women leave abusive situations. We've provided legal support, housing, therapy, job training. We've broken cycles. We've saved lives. More applause. But none of that would exist if I'd stayed quiet, if I'd cancelled the wedding privately, cried in my room, and moved on like a good girl should. My revenge wasn't humiliating him at our wedding. That was just the announcement. My revenge has been every single day since, building, growing, thriving. Lovey scanned the crowd. So when people ask me if I regret the bouquet, if I regret the lawsuit, if I regret going public, I tell them this. My only regret is that I didn't trust myself sooner, that I ignored red flags because I wanted to be loved, that I made myself smaller to fit into his life. She stepped away from the podium, walking across the stage. Your abuser wants you silent, wants you ashamed, wants you to carry his guilt. Don't do it. Speak up, stand up, build up, create something so magnificent that he becomes a footnote in your story, not the story itself. Standing ovation. 5,000 women on their feet. I'm often asked, do you forgive him? And my answer is, I don't think about him enough to care. Forgiveness isn't mandatory for healing. What's mandatory is refusing to let his actions define your value. He doesn't get that power. Nobody does. Lovey returned to the podium. Glenn Powell taught me something valuable. He taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew, that I'm braver than I believed, that I deserve better than I was accepting. Those lessons cost me dearly. 3 years of my life, $73,000, my trust in love. But I took those expensive lessons and I built an empire. She pulled out her phone, held it up. This morning I received a message from a woman named Keisha. She wrote, 5 years ago I sat in your first Rising Voices circle. You told us fighting back was possible. That night I left my abusive boyfriend. Today I graduated law school. I'm going to be a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence cases. Thank you for showing me what power looks like. Lovey's voice broke slightly. That's revenge, that's power. Not making him suffer, making sure his suffering of you ends. The crowd erupted again. So to every woman watching who's been betrayed, abused, manipulated, gaslit, your revenge isn't punishment. It's peace. It's thriving. It's living so fully that one day you realize you haven't thought about him in months. She smiled. Glenn Powell is somewhere doing his own work now. Good for him, but I don't need to know where or how, because my life isn't defined by his redemption. My life is defined by my resilience. Final applause. 5,000 women standing, cheering, crying. Lovey walked off stage into Elijah's arms. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." After the conference, Lovey did a book signing. Her memoir, Wildflowers Rise, had sold over 1 million copies. Women lined up for hours to meet her, share their stories, thank her. One woman, maybe 60, handed Lovey a book to sign. "My daughter showed me your wedding video 5 years ago. I'd been married to an abusive man for 35 years. Watching you walk away gave me permission to do the same. I left him that week. Today, I'm remarried to a kind man. Thank you." Lovey hugged her. "You did that. Not me. You." That evening, Lovey and Elijah had dinner at their hotel. Her phone buzzed, an email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject: "From Seattle." She almost deleted it, then opened it. "Lovey, this is Natalie, Glenn's sister. I wanted you to know something. Glenn saw your speech today, the live stream. He called me after and said, she won, completely. And I'm glad. He's doing well, still sober, still in therapy, doing prevention work with teenagers. But he wanted me to tell you that hearing you say he's irrelevant was the best thing anyone's ever said about him. It meant you were free. He said that's all he ever wanted after he finally got honest with himself, for you to be free of him. I thought you should know, not for closure, just because it's true. Be well. Natalie." Lovey showed Elijah the email. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Nothing, exactly nothing, and that's perfect." She deleted the email and turned off her phone. They spent the rest of dinner talking about their plans, the Foundation's expansion into 3 more states, the possibility of adopting a child, their upcoming vacation to Jamaica. Glenn Powell wasn't mentioned again, because he didn't matter. Lovey had built a life so full, so rich, so purposeful that he was just a shadow in her rear-view mirror, visible if she looked back, but growing smaller every day. 2 weeks later, Lovey found out she was pregnant. She and Elijah cried happy tears in their bathroom, holding each other, overwhelmed with joy. "What should we name her?" Elijah asked, already convinced it was a girl. Lovey smiled. "If it's a girl, Loretta, after Grandma. And if it's a boy, Augustus, after my dad." "Perfect." 7 months later, Loretta Grace Hartwell was born. 8 pounds, healthy, with her mother's eyes and her father's smile. Lovey held her daughter and thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago, standing in a wedding dress, about to marry a man who didn't deserve her. That woman had been brave. But this woman, holding her daughter, surrounded by love, having built an empire from ashes, this woman was unstoppable. Glenn Powell saw the birth announcement on social media, a photo of Lovey and Elijah with their daughter, caption reading, "Loretta Grace Hartwell, our wildflower, our joy." He smiled, left no comment, and closed the app. Then he went to teach his class of 15-year-old boys about consent and respect. One kid raised his hand. "Mr. Powell, what made you want to teach this?" Glenn thought carefully. "I made terrible mistakes when I was young, hurt people I claimed to love, and I want to make sure you guys learn what I didn't, that real strength isn't control, it's respect. Real love isn't possession, it's partnership." "Did you ever fix it? With the person you hurt?" "No. Some things can't be fixed, but I can try to prevent other people from making my mistakes. That's the best I can do." The kid nodded. "That's pretty brave, Mr. Powell." Glenn smiled. Not brave, just responsible. After class, Glenn drove home to his small apartment. He pulled out the box of unsent letters, looked at them one last time, and then did something he'd never done before. He burned them, all of them, watched them turn to ash in his fireplace, because holding on to them was holding on to a version of himself that didn't exist anymore. He wasn't the man who wrote those letters, desperate, guilty, seeking absolution. He was just Glenn, a man who'd done terrible things, faced consequences, and was trying every day to be better. Not for Lovey, for himself, for the boys he taught, for the possibility that somewhere, someday, he might become someone worthy of his own respect. That night, thousands of miles apart, both Lovey and Glenn went to sleep. Lovey, in her beautiful home, next to her husband, with their daughter in the nursery down the hall. Her dreams were about the Foundation's upcoming expansion, about teaching Loretta to be strong, about all the women she'd help tomorrow. Glenn, in his small apartment, alone, but at peace. His dreams were about the class he'd teach next week, about the boy who'd thanked him for the lesson, about finally understanding that redemption wasn't about being forgiven. It was about becoming someone who didn't need to be. Two people, forever connected by the worst moment of both their lives. But only one of them had turned that moment into something beautiful. And that, ultimately, was the greatest revenge of all. The end.